What's up, guys? I am so happy to be here because I'm with the Raven Douglas. She is amazing, so talented, and I'm just so happy to have met her. And today we're going to talk about conversion writing and UX writing. Raven, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Maya. First, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor. As she said, guys, my name is Raven Douglas. I am a conversion copywriter and a UX copywriter. I run my own business. It's a copy agency called the Douglas Draft. And I also work a good old 9 to 5 at Asana, which is a tech company that specializes in work management.
Yeah, so you said a lot of great things there. And one thing I wanted to know more about is what is a conversion writer?
Sure. Okay. So a conversion copywriter is, I'm sure you have an Instagram. Well, actually, I know you have an Instagram.
Right.
I'm sure you also have a Facebook. You, for that matter, have email. So you see ads. I'm sure you've signed up a time or two to get like that 10% discount. Maybe even slid some service your number to get like an extra 5–10% off. Commercials that you see, billboards that you pass, signage when you're in the store, and even it's like 30% off and all that good stuff, even product inserts, instructions. Somebody like me writes all of that. I am the person that is engineered to help you buy things.
Wow. Okay. So what skills do you think you need to have in order to be good at a job like that?
Sure. Okay. And I'm glad we're starting with conversion and not UX because they are really related, which we can get into in just a second.
Yes.
But to start, like getting people to buy something, a lot of people think that people don't like being sold to. That's not actually true. People don't like being sold to poorly. Think about it. If you're in the market to buy things, which we all are always in the market to buy things, even just out of necessity, right? A lot of times also out of convenience, we're looking to purchase. We just don't like what we perceive to be a bad sales pitch. So one of the key pieces of like being a conversion writer and being good at it is actually being persuasive through the written word, which is not easy. And a lot of people think it is because they're like, oh, it's just words. Everybody writes. It's like, yeah, but when you're writing to sell somebody, it's very difficult because you also can't create desire. I can't make you want something that you don't already want, but I can exploit your desire for something you're already looking to buy.
Wow. Okay. You are just saying a lot of good things. So would you say with conversion copywriting is like sales a popular background that people come from? And also, what is your background as well? Is something I wanted to know.
Sure. Okay. So conversion copywriting sales is not necessarily popular, but it is a great background to have. The only reason I say it's not necessarily popular is because you don't actually have to have a degree to do what I do.
Okay.
And for that matter, it's a low barrier of entry. The same with being a UX writer. You don't actually have to have a degree unless you are trying to break into certain companies and the company requires you to have a degree. But if you're looking to contract or freelance, no, you don't. And my background is ironically in English, which I know will sound like, oh, she's lying to us. Like, no, she's got an entire degree in words. It's like, yeah, but my degree was actually in English literature. It was just a nerd about, oh my gosh, this is a beautifully written sentence, or oh my, look at the way that Jane Austen wrote this, or look at the way, that John Grisham penned this piece. And none of that is what I do. So all of my degrees are actually in English, in teaching and English literature. And I was actually a teacher before I went full time into writing copy.
I just have so many questions. Like you just keep saying so many like good things. Okay. So before I forget, I want to know the difference between a UX writer and a conversion writer. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Okay. So the easiest way for me to say it is also to illustrate, and this is where my teacher hat comes in. So I'm sure we've all got apps on our phones, right? And for everybody listening, you're maybe even watching YouTube on an app right now. You see what you perceive to be like pop-ups if there is a notification that you need to click. iOS just rolled out an update, which those of us that are iPhone users love it because it says ask app not to track, right? Or it says
Oh.
allow.
Mm-hmm.
So you get pop-ups like that. Even when you're on a desktop, you know, you get directions of like where you should go, what to do, something that explains a piece of the site for you. Like all of that is UX writing. So UX is just user experience writing, right? Because especially with so much tech at our fingertips now, I don't have to use your platform if I don't want to.
Yeah.
There are other alternatives. We're seeing Facebook struggle right now with the advent of Instagram and TikTok. I mean, who knows really what happened to Snapchat? Bless them.
Ooh, where's my? I need to take a sip.
You know, but it's, you know, I don't have to use your platform. Even like Netflix, we saw it, right? And it's like, okay, then there was Hulu, and now there's Disney Plus and Paramount Plus, and I think even Discovery Channel and the History Channel have subscription services. So anytime that you see like directions or explanations, or something that improves your understanding or experience, then that's UX. If it is geared to get you to take an action specifically, usually that action is something that's going to benefit the company, which could be something as simple as a follow or a comment. And it's usually as momentous as a sale. They want you to buy something. That's conversion.
Wow. Okay. That makes so much sense. And then you said your background was in English. So your coworkers and stuff like that, do they have similar backgrounds? Like, what would you say is a very popular, like, let's say I wanted to become a UX writer and I was like, okay, I want to go to college first. Is there any like major you would steer me towards?
I would actually probably steer you towards product design, really, because for UX writing, I work a lot with product design, because it's not just like, oh, I need to give you directions and like step one, or like click this, or all of this good stuff. You've got a very small space when you're writing UX copy to convey everything that you need to convey. And it needs to be simple enough that people get it immediately, right? Because also all of that is part of the user experience. Like, it's not just like, oh, I need to tell them what to do. No, I need to make sure that they understand it at a quick glance, because people have short attention spans when they're on their devices. I also need to make sure that I understand where they came from before this, right? So I need to understand the user journey. I also have to be able to interact with the limitations, or even the expansiveness of whatever surface I'm writing for. So if that's an app and it's a particular page in the app, and let's say our app has limited functionality on something, I have to write in such a way that it doesn't make the user feel like, man, they cheating us out of this. I don't even want to use the app, right? But I also have to be honest and truthful, because if I don't write in a way that actually addresses that, then they feel like they've been cheated, right? Just like, why didn't they just tell me that they couldn't do, or they didn't have, right? So I would definitely steer toward, again, product design, because you need to be able to understand, like, all right, what's the user journey? How is a product built? And how can I write from an experience that lets people know in a very simple way, like, oh, this is why things are the way they are, and it makes the most sense.
Wow. Yeah. And like what you said too, I feel like your job, you might do a lot of iteration, like maybe this is the first copy and then the second. So I kind of wanted to know, like, a day in your life, when you wake up, whatever, like, what do you do? Are you in a lot of meetings? You said you interact with design, but just more of that.
Sure. Okay. That's a great question. So to start my day, I am chaotically organized. I will say that.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, I'm really chaotically organized. One, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't get done. I've shared this with you before. Hey, if I don't have it in writing, it's a no, because there are a bunch of things that are usually swirling around in my head, but usually also because I'm thinking of like, oh, I've got like 6 projects in the works right now, right? And each of those projects could even have like subsets, right? One project could be like 3 surface areas. Another project could be like 10 surface areas. And some of those surface areas could have subsets within themselves. So in terms of like, am I in a lot of meetings? It depends on what the particular push is for that project. If it's like, let's say a feature launch, if it's a feature launch, I'm usually covering end to end. So not just the UX copy, but I'm also covering the conversion copy. So like the landing page, the emails, thankfully somebody else writes the ads, thank God. But I'm usually covering the landing pages, the emails, the webinar page, the in-product copy, or what's called an IPC. And then also the modals, I'll get into it.
Okay, great.
Also the modals. And so the IPCs and modals are the UX side of things. And then like your website, the web page, the landing page, the emails, that's conversion copy side of things. But if it's a launch, I'm covering the whole spread, right? And then there's also like interstitial pages, and maybe even the billing page if we need to make an update, something in the top nav, which is going to be like UX copy with some conversion thrown in. So if it's for a launch, then yes, I am in a lot of meetings because there's a stakeholder for each of those different assets.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
And there's usually a few, right? Like, so there might be an interactive designer for the landing page, but there is a motion designer for the modals or the in-product queue, right? Which is the UX side of things, because we might be doing like an animation to like get people to pay attention. So a modal for UX is when, you get, we call them pop-ups all the time, but it's not quite accurate, but you get this pop-up on your screen and the rest of the screen is kind of grayed out or, dulled a bit.
Yeah.
So it makes the pop-up stand out. That's going to be a modal, right? And another way that you help people not click out of it, because people sometimes will click out if you don't immediately catch their attention, because it's just like, oh, what's this pop-up, right? Is we put animation into the modal with like a catchy headline, a very simple calls to action, right? To either get them to click through or to try whatever new feature that is. But then the animation will start playing on its own, right? And then the copy, even though it might only be like 3 lines, like a headline, a subhead, and a CTA, has to work to quickly explain what it is. And then the animation is maybe a 30-second video, which may or may not have copy too. So we need motion designers for that. And then we also need just an interactive designer that works on another piece of that, because in order for the motion designer to animate it, they first need the images to animate. And the interactive designer from that also needs the copy from me to be like, oh, hey, maybe we've got like a product image here and we need to put something on it, right? So anytime there's a launch, again, like lots of people, that was just one thing that I went through with you.
Girl, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, if it's a one-off or a test, then I might be in 1 or 2, just 1, maybe 2 meetings tops for that particular thing. And tests are usually run on like a 2-week sprint, because we want to get it out quickly, right? We have an idea, we have a hypothesis that's supposed to be based in data. We want to test the hypothesis, and so we put out this content, and we need to get it out quickly because it's going to run within that 2-week time frame. We've got to get it through us, like through copy, through design, through production, also through web engineering and development if we need anything. We also have to account for the limitations of development, and then it's got to run for 2 weeks. So the typical day really varies. If I had to think about how often I do launches, I maybe do 3 launches a year, but they maybe last like for about 2 months at a time. So it's pretty extensive. If it's like those sprint tests, then it's 2 weeks. And like I said, a day like that is just, I might have like a meeting to go over the scope. And then I have the second meeting that I have is almost always with the designer. Like the designer and I are sitting down like, all right, here's what we need the thing to do. How are we going to execute it? And then we start trading ideas, or sometimes we will think about like, oh, what themes do we want to convey? And then we might go on mute for maybe 15, 20 minutes and like heads down, and then we come back to each other and share, all while we're on Zoom, right? And just be like, so here's what I'm thinking. And we riff off of each other that way. And then there's also focus time that I have, because as decent as I am at doing this, I still need dedicated time to just think. And that's my process, to be like, nah, Raven, that's crap, strike that, we're gonna start over. Because like you said, there are a bunch of versions. And so it might go through, let's see, for this last launch that I did, and even for this last test that I did, the last test, I think it went through 4 rounds of feedback, which is a bit unusual. But there were a lot of stakeholders and a lot of people had opinions.
Mhm.
And for the last launch that I did, I think it went through 7 rounds of feedback, which is
Wow.
very
Yeah.
unusual. Yeah, but there were a lot of stakeholders, and the launch itself wasn't playing the best, so we
Mhm.
had to start over. Um, I hope that answers your question, because
It
that was like,
does. Yeah. And do you interact a lot with data science too? Because I feel like you might, like, they might say, oh, like this piece of text, 15% of people clicked on it versus another one, 30%. So do you interact with them a lot?
yes, but because I intentionally do so. I think that really depends on the organization that you're in and the kind of structure that they have. Ours is like most tech companies, and even in my business, like most tech companies that I work with as a contractor, like there's a wealth of information, but because there are so many stakeholders, it can be very difficult to be agile. Like
Yeah.
it, they don't operate like startups anymore, right? Because it's, I mean, let's be real, as fun as some of this stuff is, I like getting paid. That's what I do, what I do.
Yeah. Hell
Uh,
yeah.
so because it pays well, that's definitely why I do it. So I don't work with startups that often anymore, because it's just not usually in budget for the prices that I charge in my business. And I
Yeah.
mean, 9 to 5 is also a corporation. So for those, you have to really like make time to meet with UX researchers, right? You have to go to the UXR team and be like, hey, I want insights about this specific surface area. And the best part about going to them is also that when you ask them, especially when you've got like really great stakeholders that are great at what they do, they will tell you the parts that you're missing. They're like, oh, well, you asked about this, but also I think that this might be helpful as well, and it's related,
Yeah.
right? Or if I need to go to data science for the product marketing side, and I'm like, yeah, so how did our last campaign perform? And can you tell me how many people actually clicked the banner? Now, out of those people that clicked the banner, how many of them actually converted
Yeah.
to the next page? I need to know the final numbers. And then they'll go like, oh yeah, so here's where we go. And then I start building hypothesis from there. And I usually do like break down insights with them, or I'll ask them for their insights report. I'm like, hey, you've already analyzed this data. What do you think is happening?
Yeah.
Because this is what you're really great at. And I've got theories, but you look at this stuff all day.
Yeah. So it seems like you need to do a lot of collaboration, and communication will be another good skill. But what would you say would be another, maybe like soft skill? I hate that people call it soft skills, but what would be another soft skill that you think you need in order to be a good UX writer?
Sure. I would also say that another soft skill is knowing how to delegate. Because another thing that I find, especially when because like they deem writers under creatives in tech, right? So when you're a creative, there's a lot of gray area for people who are on more technical roles and in like not creative roles, right? And so they're just like, they're either like, oh, well, this is how we do things, but I can see it kind of doesn't work here. So what should we do? Or they have no idea what to do at all. A lot of times your product marketer will be like, yeah, so this is a campaign. And you like, okay, so does the campaign have a name? Nah. I mean, we've got some thoughts, but
Oh gosh.
okay. So we don't have a name, but we're having kickoff. Okay. All right. So we just gonna put this out. We don't even know what we're calling it. But these features though, like, yes. So yeah, definitely like good ways to delegate, because you have to be able to give those pieces of responsibility back to your stakeholders, right? Or tell them what you need, like in communicating that. But in order to communicate that, you have to be able to separate in your mind, like, oh, this belongs to that person, this belongs to that person. Because if you try to take it on all yourself, it won't work.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's real. And it's crazy how much I relate from like the software engineering side as well, like having a kickoff, but then you look at the spec and it's like, it's not specific enough. And it's like, we can't start yet. So there's a lot of like parallels there. So that's
And then
really,
and a moving deadline, right? And you just
yeah,
like, okay, so realistically, how long might this take me?
yeah,
No, but what they forgot to account for this in the spec, and it's missing, and so now we got to build it in. Ooh, that's put another week. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah. You already kind of touched on this, But like you were saying, kind of like the pros and cons, like the cons, there's so many like, well, you didn't say this as a con, but like there's so many stakeholders involved. And like,
Mhm.
sometimes things aren't clear. But if you can maybe say like one pro and one con to being like a UX writer.
Sure. One pro is, at least for me anyway, because I've been doing this so long that there are not a whole lot of new horizons when it comes to conversion copy, which is why I got into UX, part of why I kept getting into UX writing in the first place. Like one of my clients needed to build an app.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, sure. I mean, we can do that. Like, I'm already writing the onboarding emails, right, to get people acclimated to this new program or course or whatever. Like, yeah, it'd be no problem to build an app. But one pro for me is that it's always something new because tech is always evolving. And it's not just new feature rollouts, right? Like, there's the advent of AI, and like, how do you infuse like a human aspect into this very technical thing? How do you speak to people the way in which they speak so that everybody can grok it? Everybody can grok it in 15 seconds or less.
Mhm.
And you get people to do what they need to do so that they enjoy the experience. Because the whole point of UX copy is like, they need to have a good experience, because again, they don't need to use your stuff. Like, you need them coming back because this is what's going to pay your bills.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's one pro. And if I had to say, I think the con, at least for me, is not how many stakeholders there are. I think it's how many people assume, because no one will ever say this out loud, but everyone thinks it in their heads. They're like, oh, it's just words. Like, it's easy. Like, it's a sentence. How hard could it be? And then I've done exercises with people before, and they're like, oh, I tried to fit it in one sentence, but like I couldn't. And it was actually could you help me? And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. So it's not just words. All right. There's actually some strategy to it. Okay.
Yeah. And that's so interesting that you said that. But like, I've been like getting into like writing and stuff like that and choosing words. We have both like written a script. Like choosing words is such like a hard thing to do. And it's like, there's so much care into that. And especially I bet if it comes with people's money, like the wording has to be so right, or people will be upset and like different things like that. So, wow, that's interesting. And then something else I wanted to talk about is for all the people that they've listened to this and they're, oh yeah, also there's so much good money in this. It's like a tech role with UX writing is something else I wanted to mention to people. Do you think there's a lot of job security with this? Is something I wanted to know.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, you work in tech, and I feel like we talked about this before, that like there is no shortage, even in times of like economic downturn. There are companies all the time that are just like, hey, so we've got this contract. Hey, I just, I happen to see that you work at this tech company. Just wondering if you were open to new opportunities, because it's ever expanding. Like I said, there's no limit. People are creating new pieces of tech every day. And since they're new, and even when they're not new, they're always going to be new to someone. There's always going to be updates, changes, right? And so you're always going to need people like me to help people navigate it, because pictures can only get you so far.
Yeah, like I would tell people open an app, and what app doesn't have like text in it? Like it would be really hard to find even just 5 that have like no text at all.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we see it all the time, especially when apps are like really working out bugs. How many times have you seen something like oops or whoops, or or like the app functionality is off, and you have to find a way to explain it away, but like do so quickly. So yeah, there's a lot of job security in it. And more people do pieces of it than they think or than they realize. And I love that about it, is that it's so accessible. Even though it's not easy, it's super accessible. Like everybody can immediately know, like, oh, I don't know how to do this, and they start looking for the instructions.
But now what I wanted to talk about is like, let's say I am like a totally different profession. Let's say I'm like, I don't know, a nurse or something like that. And I want to transition into this. I want you to Or if you could, please give me some advice that you would give someone who maybe just heard you talk at a conference and now they're like, okay, I want to do this.
Okay. All right. So if you want to get started in UX writing, the first thing that I would say is start looking at UX, start looking at the user experience. And the first place that I would start is the user journey. Because before you can start building for experience, you have to understand where are you trying to get them to go and where are they starting, right? Like the same way that I'm talking to someone right now about how to get started in UX writing, it's like, okay, if you're a nurse, you need to start at ground zero for, understanding everything has a user journey, everything. Even when you go to pick up your phone, that's not even the start of your user journey. The start of your user journey was probably way back when you first believed that you needed a phone, before you even went shopping for it, right? To get you to a place that you are now using and interacting with this phone. So I have to build for every single stage of that. I would definitely start and like hit it hard, getting into that. After that, you don't need to be a master at product design by any means, but at least understand the terminology, right? Like once you've started with user journey, then you can move into user experience and go, oh, okay, so I need to know what's a modal. I need to know what's a pop-up. I need to, I need to understand what's an in-product queue. I also need to understand, when do I need to use a CTA? When do I need to use a link, right? So you need to start building in that space in your mind and go, oh, okay, this is what a user experience is. And what I used to do is like literally, because I'm a huge visual kid, I used to write it down. And I mentioned this to you about even like running lines is when I have trouble, I write it down. Or when I need to learn it quickly, I write it down of just like, oh, what kind of feelings go with this, right? Because the whole point of user experience copy is to make people feel good enough about your product that they come back and they want to keep using it. So top feelings that you want them to feel are easy, it's simple, depending on whatever your surface area is. It might be fun, it might be informational, whatever. So start building your word map for things. And it might seem very difficult to do if you're not in the field yet. So I say like pick one of your favorite products and reverse engineer it, like break it down that way. So if we take, I don't know, Instagram, for example, it's purely about entertainment. So some of the word map things would be fun, eye-catching, grabs attention, right? Also easy to use, uploading, like these are word map things. And you're like, oh, what pieces do I need to connect in order to get them to have those feelings, right? And how can I work with the existing platform to get them to have those feelings? That would be my next step. After that, I would also start seeking out mentors and talking to people, like joining communities. There are a lot of thriving Facebook and professional offline communities for UX overall. Most of them are for design, but a lot of design that you'll find still has writers, because UX writing is also sometimes called content design. Okay. So they kind of lump designers all in together, and like anytime, because UX is still relatively new, they're just like, oh yeah, UX, all the things. And it's like, wait, what? But you've got researchers, you've got designers, you've got writers, you've got so many, you've got marketers even.
Wow. Yeah.
That are all in that field. So I would start joining those communities, building those relationships, not necessarily even just to network, to ask for work, like just to be able to ask them questions as you're learning, because it's so huge that like, you could easily get lost.
I love that. Do you have any favorite communities on Facebook or any other ones that you would definitely recommend?
Ooh, okay. Favorite community on Facebook. Geez, what's the name of it? I want to say it is UX and Microcopy on Facebook that I'm a part of. That's hands down my favorite. It's a really thriving community. They've got lots of great resources. And I think that's my favorite out of both online and offline communities that I'm a part of.
So like, let's say, I did all of the work that you taught. Maybe I even took a product design online course. So when it comes to projects, something in software engineering that we do is we might build like tic-tac-toe and then, put that on our resume. Should they like maybe build like all the UX writing for something and then put that as a project on the resume?
They absolutely can. So it's called spec work.
Okay.
Yeah, as a copywriter, we say all the time, like take something, create something. It could even just be like an app that doesn't exist. Like it could just be something that you make up, right? You just need bare basic mock-ups. You can do it in Canva. If you've got a designer friend that doesn't mind doing it for you, you could also do it there. You just need like something that looks like a product surface, whether that is a website or whether that is an app. Or whether that's like even a desktop app, right? And you just need something that looks like a surface so that you can have copy to pair with whatever the app is supposed to be.
Perfect. And any other resume advice that you would give to someone that's completely new, maybe they're about to apply to their first UX writing job to make them stand out more?
Okay, so not necessarily stand out more, but to get you past the algorithms that
Yes.
often are in, yeah. So I feel like this is a general resume tip that a lot of people don't know. Look at the job description, read it word for word, and then pull out literally the same keywords. Like if they say, I don't know, facilitates product design for product copy, like you need to say, you don't have to say facilitates, but you need to say like wrote product design for product copy, because like those keywords are going to be product design, product copy, right? And you just need to know like whatever those keywords in are, but that they're looking for in the responsibilities, that's what it needs to match in your experience.
Yes, I love that. I high five that, like, yes, yes, yes to that, especially because like, yeah, this gems on gems on gems. Okay, so then if someone wanted to follow you, they really like what you said, where can they find you?
Sure. Okay, so you can first and foremost find me on LinkedIn. I am not typically active, but I do respond to all of my messages. I'm generally just not super active on social media as a whole, but you can find me at my first name and my last name. That's Raven Douglas with one S. Frederick and I are not related that I know of. You'll see this mug. I'm pretty sure that my current profile picture has braids up, but you'll know it's me. And yeah, you'll definitely know it's me because it'll say the Douglas Draft and it'll say Sana on there. Connect with me there. You can also follow me on Instagram at R_DOUGIE. That's @R_Dougie. Like teach me how to Dougie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's actually where it came from. Yeah. So somebody called me that when I was in school and it stuck.
It stuck, yep.
Everyone called me that. So yeah, I'm slightly more active on Instagram. I am also on Facebook. If you friend request me and I don't know you though, I'm probably not gonna accept your request.
Okay, Instagram it is. Nice. And then what was the name of your business? If they want to contact you, where can they reach out?
Sure. So it is the Douglas Draft. You can go to www.thedouglasdraft.com. There is a charming link there to where you can email me. You can also learn more about me because I have this thing called an anti-site. Totally suggest that you check it out. You'll probably get a kick out of reading the copy on it.
Nice. Okay. Thank you so much for doing this. It was so great learning. And yeah, we'll see you later, guys. Bye.
Maya, bye.